Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really provocative argument from the political philosopher Miguel Anxo Bastos Boubeta. He basically turns our whole relationship with the state on its head, and he does it by asking one simple but incredibly powerful question.
Seriously, think about that for a second. What if the state wasn't mandatory? What if it was more like a subscription service, and you and a bunch of friends could just decide to, unsubscribe? This isn't just some daydream. It's a very specific thought experiment Bastos uses to get right to the heart of what the state is, and more importantly, how it holds on to its power. So let's get into it. All right, first up, Bastos kicks things off with what he calls a radical proposition. It's designed to completely reframe how we even talk about anarchy versus the state. He says that, look, whenever this topic comes up, people get bogged down arguing about whether a stateless society is even possible. But for him, that's just the wrong question entirely. I mean, he points out that for most of human history, we lived without states. So, yeah, it's clearly possible. The real question, the one that matters today, is whether it would be allowed.
And this quote just lays it out perfectly. Imagine this scenario. A group of people, they pool their money, they buy a huge, empty plot of land somewhere remote. Their goal is simple: to live by their own rules, based on purely voluntary agreements. They're not hurting anyone, not bothering anyone. They accept all the risks themselves. The only question is, would the state just let them be?
And that question of permission, well, that's the heart of the matter. Because the moment this hypothetical community tries to exist, it runs headfirst into a very real wall.
Bastos doesn't mince words here. He predicts with certainty that the state would intervene. It would probably use force. You'd hear all the official reasons, you have to follow the common law, or the nation is indivisible. But what that response actually reveals, he argues, is the true nature of the state. It's not a voluntary club. If it was, you'd be allowed to leave.
So what you have here is a fundamental clash of principles. On one side, you have the anarchist view, that all human interactions should be voluntary, a handshake agreement. On the other side, you have the state's view, that its relationship with you is mandatory. You are born into it, and it's backed up by monopoly on force. You can't just cancel your subscription, even if you try to set up your own shop on your own land.
Now, to drive this point home, Bastos makes this really fascinating comparison to the classic debate between capitalism and socialism. He says, look, a capitalist country can pretty easily tolerate a small socialist commune living within its borders. Think of a local co-op or a kibbutz, no big deal. But he argues, a truly socialist system can't allow a little pocket of pure capitalism to thrive, because it would challenge the logic of the entire system. He says the same exact thing is true here. A minimal state, a minarchy, can't tolerate a truly anarchist community next door because its very existence would prove that the state isn't actually necessary.
Okay, so this brings us to the state's biggest justification for its own existence, right? That it provides essential public goods like security and justice. But Bastos pushes back hard on this and asks, who gets to decide what justice or security even look like? And to understand his argument, we need a quick economics concept: the subjective theory of value. It sounds complicated, but it's not. All it means is that value isn't baked into an item. The value of an apple or a car is determined by how much you, the individual, want it. Bastos argues this applies just as much to things like defense and justice. What you consider good security might be totally different from what your neighbor thinks.
Let's just take defense. Is there one right way to do it? Of course not. Some people love risk. They jump out of planes for fun. Others want to live in a padded room. Some people see a foreign country as a military threat, while others see a potential trading partner. You have the hawks who want more military spending, and the doves who want more diplomacy. So when a state creates a one-size-fits-all monopoly on defense, it guarantees that a huge number of people are going to be unhappy with the service they're being forced to buy.
And it's the exact same story with justice. What's a fair punishment? What should even be a crime? Your answer probably depends on your culture, your values, your personal beliefs. I mean, just look at how different the laws are from one country to another on things like drugs or speech or property.
So Bastos' point is, when a state imposes one single legal code on millions of diverse people, it isn't creating some kind of objective universal justice. It's just forcing one group's idea of justice onto everybody else.
So, if a state monopoly on these services is so flawed, what's the alternative? Are we just talking about chaos and disorder? Well, not according to Bastos. He pictures something completely different.
The alternative to one giant mandatory state isn't a vacuum. It's an entire ecosystem of different organizations, countless overlapping, voluntary associations that you choose to join based on your actual needs, not on the geographic lottery of your birth.
And this really clicks when you think about it. The group you need to organize a local school system is totally different from the kind of organization you'd need to set rules for global trade, right? Access to an airport might be a regional issue. A defense pact might be between several different communities. Your grocery store is run by a private company. Services would be organized at the scale that actually makes sense for the job.
And this raises a really powerful point about the world map as we know it. Why are countries the size that they are? Bastos argues it has almost nothing to do with logic or efficiency. It's just the result of centuries of wars, politics, and pure historical accident. You've got tiny microstates and massive empires. There's no single scale that's perfect for everything, which, he points out, is why states themselves have to create all these international treaties and organizations, which is, in a way, a form of anarchy they use to cooperate.
So this all builds to Bastos' final challenge. And it's really a proposal for a kind of grand experiment to see what system people actually want.
So here's the bottom line. If the people who support the state are so sure it's the best system, if they're so confident it provides the best security and justice, then why not put that confidence to the test? Let that small anarchist community actually form. Let the two systems exist side by side. Let people watch, learn, and then freely choose which society they want to be a part of. Let them vote with their feet.
And that brings us right back to the very first question we asked. Why wouldn't this peaceful experiment be allowed to happen? Well, Bastos has an answer, and it's a really provocative one. He suggests it comes down to fear.
And this is the thought he leaves us with. The real reason the state couldn't allow such a competition, he suggests, is because it simply can't afford to become optional. The risk that people might actually prefer to leave is too great. And that forces us to ask the ultimate question. If a system is really so good, so beneficial, and so superior, why does it have to be mandatory? If it requires force to keep people from walking away, can it truly be the best one? That's a powerful question to chew on. Thanks for joining us.